You know, this is a party for normal people, right? So why don't you go home to your undertaking, slut of a mother, alright? What are you smiling about?
I've been clinically diagnosed with sociopathy, Rob. To me, you're an object. You know, you're a thing. You're about as important to me as a cardboard box. And the thing about cardboard boxes is that, you know, they're totally boring on the outside, right? But sometimes if you cut them open, there'll be something interesting inside. You know, and so while you're saying all these boring things to me, I'm thinking about what it'd be like to cut you open.
Welcome to Kermode Uncut. I Am Not a Serial Killer has just become available on DVD, and I reviewed the film when it came out in cinemas. It's an adaptation of Dan Wells' 2009 YA bestseller, and it's a really interesting story about a young man who is convinced that he has sociopathic or psychopathic tendencies. He is the central I am not a serial killer, and he finds himself in an environment in which there is something monstrous in his neighborhood, and it may be him, and it may be his neighbor, and it may be something else, and it may be normal, and it may be abnormal, maybe it's natural, maybe it's unnatural, maybe it's supernatural. The whole tone of the film is sort of darkly comic and strange and weird and nasty when it needs to be, but also, you know, very, very ironic, and I think it works really well, and it has a fantastic performance by Christopher Lloyd, the best performance he's done, I think, since the days of Back to the Future. Now, when the film came out in cinemas, and I reviewed it very positively, I also knew that it was a fairly limited release. And I said at the time, look, you may struggle to find this, you'll have to seek it out. But what I will do is I'll flag it up when it comes out on DVD, which is what I'm doing now. And a couple of people said, well, what's the point in, you know, devoting attention to something which it's hard to find, which most people won't be able to see? The answer is very simple. People imagine that film criticism is about criticizing movies, about putting movies down, about saying what's wrong with movies, and that's not the case. If film criticism really has a role, it is celebrating movies, particularly movies that might otherwise have got overlooked. I remember getting really excited about Your Name, the animated feature, and then being thrilled when it had a limited release, but that limited release blossomed into something bigger. I remember talking about Train to Busan, which was a wonderful movie that, you know, I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed it. And hopefully that film found a bigger audience than it could have done if critics hadn't gone quite so crazy about it. In the case of I Am Not a Serial Killer, all the good reviews in the world didn't turn that film into a hit, but I do think it's something that has shelf life. I think it will last. I think it will sustain. I think in years to come, people will look back on it and go, that was a really interesting film. You know, the nicest messages I ever get are from people saying, you spoke fondly of a film and I went to see it. I know that a lot of criticism is to do with pointing out with what's wrong with Transformers movies and what's wrong with the new Dan Brown adaptation, and aren't we all depressed by the way that Hollywood just seems to make production line fodder. But that is only one part of it. The more important part is saying this stuff is great, this stuff is exciting, this stuff is interesting. So if you didn't see it yet, I Am Not a Serial Killer is great. It's interesting, it's exciting, and it's now available for home viewing. Fill that gap. It's really good.
What was that?
What was what?
What was that noise?